Hi guys, my name is Girish, your host for today for Back to Basics, another Back to Basics on a Friday. So today we're going to talk to you about 5G network, wireless network, 4G network, 2G network. It all depends how you want to go and portray the network and the technologies, but we're going to talk about that as to how we have changed in all our lives so far from a 2G edge network all the way down to LTE 5G network. And then we'll figure that out and we'll explain in detail about that. So today we have a person who's training a lot of people and training online courses, I should say, a 5G trainer. His name is Sanjay Kumar, and he is amazing because I have spoken to him many times and it seems like he understands the technology from the 5G network. And let's bring him on the show. Sanjay, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Girish. Thanks for inviting me over, and thanks for Back to Basics to have this show, right? And don't forget to subscribe and keep listening to these amazing podcasts from Girish, right? And we all know, right? So it's everything is going back to basics.
Yeah.
So I think I'm ready. We are good to go, right? So let's get started, Girish.
Thank you so much. So Sanjay, first thing is first. What does back to basic mean to you?
Right. So if you see now, I come from a very very moderate background, from a small town guy, right? So and currently based out of Delhi NCR in India, right? I still feel everything which was basic in my life, and I still actually adore all those things what I have seen in my childhood, right? From those basic phones what you used to have, and now the fancy phone of in 5G, right? So I actually appreciate all those things. And when I say back to basics, I still love my hometown. I still love my village, right? And my family still lives there, right? So everything is back to basic is nothing can beat back to basics, right? So that's what I feel.
Yeah, thank you again for coming on my show for talking about basic moments of technology and basic moments of wireless. Now, are we going too fast on the wireless technologies, do you think, or do you think that we are kind of here because we keep on hearing that somewhere on the east coast, or I should say on the east side, which is Japan, they're much ahead of us. Do you think that's true, or is that a myth?
No, so I think technology is moving very fast, faster than what we can imagine, right? So if we see the other earlier generations like 2G and 3G and 4G, there used to be a 10 years kind of maturity period for them, right? So let's say the 2G came somewhere around 1990s, and 2000 we have got 3G, and then we have got 4G in 2010. But again, now the technology is changing very fast, and the way the technology is evolving, we are pretty fast on that. So I pretty agree with you on this. Secondly, it's not only the wireless communication which is changing; it is also coming up with a lot of artificial intelligence, machine learning, where networks and the devices are getting smart and smarter day by day.
Mm-hmm.
And technology is like it's saying, "Catch me if you can." Right. So this is how it is. You have to live with it. Right. Now my kids, who are 7 years old, they are smarter than me when they deal with the devices. Right. So yes, you are right in that sense. Technology is pretty fast, and we have to live with that. Right. So we can't really change it, but we have to live with it. That's what
Yeah,
I
but
feel.
Sanjay, if you remember, DVDs and cassettes and VHS and all that, I used to teach my parents how to transition from VHS to CD and then DVD, how to play it, and now you teach them how to go on Netflix and start streaming, right? So it's the same synopsis for technology for wireless phones. So do you think we are struggling with learning the wireless technology?
So, Girish, now if you see, you taught your parents saying that, okay, like let's say how to learn, how to run these CDs and DVDs. And now my daughter teaches me how I can build an app for my mobile phone.
See?
Right. So if you
Yes.
see, still the same kind of paradigm shift what we see here, the CDs and DVDs has moved to app development right now.
Yes.
And many of the things my son who is just 7 years old, he does a lot of stuff and he tells me, that like this is how it is done. Right. So I think there is no difference. We were teaching CD and DVDs to our parents, and now our kids are teaching us how to play with the mobile phones and then all these stuff, the cloud computing and stuff like that. Right? So I think nothing has changed. It's the technology which is different now, but
Yeah.
it's almost the same stuff. Yeah.
So I think later in time, I think the kids will teach us how the car is going to run without gas, I guess, right? And that's the new way of technology nowadays. Uh,
Right.
I feel. So,
Yeah.
do you think? Yes, I guess the wireless topic is getting too fast. But do you? What's the difference between 2G and a 5G? Can you explain that a little?
So if you see, as we look at the names, right, this started always telecommunication, right? So telecommunication means how you can communicate with the people from a distance,
Mm.
right? And the initial intent of telecommunication networks were like just the voice calls, what they used to do,
Yeah.
right? That time we used to call those voice calls as circuit switch calls, because every time whenever you want to make a call, you have to set up a circuit end to end, right? And which has to be actually connecting two parties so that they can speak to each other. So 2G, before 2G, we had something called as wireline networks as well as 1G networks,
Mm-hmm.
which were pretty much doing exactly only the voice calls.
Mm-hmm.
But when we started with 2G, we started with voice call, but after some time we realized that voice is not the only thing what you can do on the networks. You can send SMSs, and which is earlier done by with some pagers and stuff like that. And then we have started testing something called as the data calls, the packet switching part of it, right? And 2G evolved to something called a GPRS and Edge, which has given us some flavor of how the data being consumed, and then how to do it on the mobile phones,
Mm.
right? And it was giving a very small amount of data, some few kbps kind of data. And then we moved to 3G, which gave us a lot of flavors about the multimedia calls, video calls, kind of stuff. And the 4G has given it a completely new dimension, right? Giving you hundreds of Mbps kind of data, where you can watch movies, you can watch Netflix or Hotstar or any other OTT platform for that matter. You can book cars, you can read online, right? So there is a lot of stuff which is happening on the mobile phone.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, when you talk about 5G, 5G is not only about the humans to get connected to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the basic architecture of 5G, 5G is planned in a way where it can connect the humans, but that is only one aspect of 5G. 5G is also planned to connect a lot of new industry verticals as well as the things. Things, when I say, I am talking about Internet of Things,
Mm-hmm.
the smart homes, the smart cities, the street lights, the transportation, railways, and anything for that matter can be connected with the 5G network.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, today a few things which were looking impossible 5 years back, and now we are actually seeing those things in our life. And I feel this is going to be future, and a lot of things will be getting connected: the smart homes, the cars, right, the street lights, everything will be connected. So 5G have three service verticals actually. One is targeted towards the end users, which are the human beings, where we talk about the high data rates,
Mm-hmm.
where we can achieve the data rates in tune of Gbps, 20 Gbps kind of stuff, which is the peak data rate of the networks, right? And which allows you to download a high definition movie in 3 seconds,
Mm.
right? You remember the buffering what we used to do in our systems?
Yeah.
Forget about it. And now they are promising that you can download a high definition movie in just 3 seconds,
Right.
right? This is what it is promising to the end user.
Mm.
But again, other than this, they also have a lot of use cases where we talk about autonomous cars, where we talk about vehicle to X kind of communication, vehicle to anything. Street lights can communicate with vehicles, vehicles can communicate with other vehicles, and
Mm.
also the remote surgery, talking with the tactile internet, augmented
So
reality, virtual reality, a lot of stuff.
so Sanjay, I don't want to interrupt there, but you're saying you get lights and you get connected to the car, right? But think about this way, that when we drive in different locations in India or in US, there's a lot
Mhm.
of hotspots which are missing, or I should say blind spots, that we're not
Mhm.
getting any signals. Do you
Mhm.
think what you are exempling there, you think that's going to fix that problem?
Right. Yeah. So if you see the place where you interrupted me, the next step I was actually going to answer your question.
Okay.
So they are coming up with a service called as URLLC. UR stands for ultra reliability,
Hmm.
and LL stands for low latency. Ultra reliable means the network has to be very reliable, and they will be like availability of 99.999% kind of availability. So network which should be. So if you talk about the autonomous cars and self-driven cars, the network has to be very reliable. You cannot say that my signal has gone out and you have
That's right.
killed somebody. You can't do that, right?
Right.
That is one. The other part of this URLLC is called as LL, which is low latency. Low latency means the time you respond to that particular car, or the time the car responds to the network, has to be in tunes of milliseconds, less than 1 millisecond, right? So this is something which is being targeted by 5G, where you talk about networks which are highly reliable, and at the same time, the delays in the networks are very less, and only those kind of networks can actually satisfy the requirement of these autonomous cars and industrial IoT, industrial Internet of Things, and remote surgery kind of stuff. I hope that answers your question, Girish.
Yes. But the thing is, here's another point. Um, you're talking about cars and you're talking automation cars, right? But then
Mhm.
can this synopsis be also for medical too? Like I'm
Yep.
sitting here and I'm surgering you sitting out somewhere in a different country or a different town. Is that possible?
Yeah, so if you see now, the e-health is one of the major use case for 5G,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's from both the perspective. There are two perspectives to it. One perspective is the rural health,
Yeah.
right? There are many villages in India where you don't have the proper doctors or the medical facilities. So what they can do is they can actually have some because it is not very easy to have fiber to each and every village, right? So you can do this with the wireless connectivity, and you have some kind of remote hospitals which are set up, and you can actually do some day-to-day activities. You can see some patients, prescribe some medicines to them. That is one way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, what you see here is the expert level kind of medical health, which is not available in the city or in the country, for which you can even connect to the global health centers, and the remote surgeries can be performed by using some wireless connection,
But
right? And one important.
but as a consumer, I think I'm going to be scared,
Yeah,
right?
I was
So
coming to that. I
yeah,
was coming to that. So if you see, as a consumer, you will be always, because today, a few years back, I'll just relate it to something else. Few years back, I was afraid of doing any transactions online. Right. If somebody asks me for my credit card, I will I will actually think twice to
double
provide my
think.
credit card. And
Yeah.
now I'm doing this day in and day. So it will happen over the period of time.
Mm.
But one important thing what I wanted to highlight here. So if you see, I'll take an example of a accident, right? So most of the patient victims, when they are at the site of accident, they are typically, in general, they are typically alive. And most of the people, they die when they are transported from the accident site to the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
right? And typically, the ambulance, what is carrying them, will have some life support and all, but they don't have expert doctors with them,
Yeah.
right? So which can actually do some kind of first aid kind of stuff on those patients, right? So the 5G or the wireless network, they will allow this, where even the doctors who are sitting in some hospitals, which is around maybe 2 hours drive from that accident spot, they will be able to give some initial treatment to that particular person,
Mm-hmm.
so the life can be saved. That is one. The second thing is they can actually check his vitals when he is on the move, so that the necessary arrangements can be done in the hospitals,
Mm-hmm.
right? So these are two areas which can be targeted for the health segment also, right? So there can be a lot of use cases, but these are the primary use cases what I can think of these wireless network. I hope this makes sense, right?
Yeah. Because I've seen most of the the TV shows, the hospital TV shows, and
Mm-hmm.
they FaceTime the doctor and then they say that this is what needs to be done. But I
Mm-hmm.
think obviously Hollywood movies are a little different and TVs are a little different. So I don't know how realistic that is. Do you think that's realistic how they're portraying on the
Right.
show?
Okay, so Girish, just to answer this question, if you see, 5G comes with a lot of use cases. I'll take an example of autonomous car, right? And I'm sure, like, there are many countries which are even missing the particular transport system,
Yes.
right? And autonomous car may not make sense to them,
Yeah.
right? And it may make sense in some of the countries like US. At the same time, rural health can be one use case which may make sense to India or Africa for that matter, but it may not make sense to country like US. So if you see, many of the use cases can be country specific, can be region specific, and I think all these use cases make sense. But how many will be successful? The only as time unfolds, we will get to know about it. But I think most of these use cases will make great sense. That's what I feel.
Thank you so much for that, Sanjay. So, regarding smartphones, can I use a smartphone which is 2G, 3G capability to a 5G network? Or do you think that's just not going to work at all?
Right. So you're talking smartphones?
Yes.
Yeah. So as of now, if you see the kind of technologies we are coming up with, most of the phones, most of the networks, I will say they have the backward compatibility, but not the forward compatibility. Right. So your 2G and 3G phone may, or mostly it will not work with 4G or 5G network. But when you get 5G phone, that is for sure going to work with at least 4G network, and it may work with some of the 2G or 3G network. So as of now, 5G doesn't talk about the backward compatibility towards 2G and 3G, but 4G is going to be a major backbone for 5G networks, right? 5G networks. So they will work on 4G.
So a couple of weeks back, I think I read that most of the U.S. telecommunication companies, they are ending the copper landline phones. Okay. So now the question is, do you think that 2G and the 3G will be cut off also? And if it will, when do you think it will? Because it seems like when we travel, I still see 2G networks somewhere.
Yep. Right. So if you see, there are two ways to look at this. So if you see 2G, 3G, 4G, these are three generations which are already available in the telecommunication network.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
4G is something which is going to go for long, because it is actually a major backbone even for the 5G to grow. Because the point what you mentioned, the black holes of coverage cannot be eliminated so easily, right? So it will have a lot of fallback options on 4G network. So 4G is here to stay for another 10 years, maybe 5 years at least, right? 3G is something which was somewhere between 2G and 4G, right? And most of the operators around the globe has already started scrapping their 3G networks. I will talk about the reasons why they're doing it, right? I'll come to that. 2G is something which is still used for basic telephony, and still most of the developing countries has around 50 and above percentage of users still latch on to the 2G network. So I still feel that 2G is here to stay for another few years, maybe 5 years, maybe 7 years, I don't know. It all depends how 5G will pick up and how it is going to replace the existing network. But the important question, why operators will want to scrap their 2G or 3G network, and that is all about the operational expenditure what operators are having, right? Because let's say when I have a 2G network, 3G network, 4G network, and 5G network, every network adds to my expenses, right? So I have to manage all these networks extensively, and it adds a lot of cost to my budget, right? So 3G was already somewhere between 2G and 4G, and people have already started scrapping that. 2G, because there are a lot of users still on 2G, they can't really ask all their 2G users to switch off and move to 4G, right? But it's gradually it is going to happen. How soon or how later it will happen, that is too early to say. But just operator wants to cut the cost. That is the prime key for scrapping all these older networks.
So thank you for that, by the way, Sanjay. So what is the difference between LTE and 5G? Is there two different items, or LTE is a new name for 4G network?
Okay, so if you see, LTE was initially a technology which was used for fourth generation network.
Yeah.
Right, fourth generation network.
Yeah.
Right. And now what we have is, typically they call this as long-term evolution technology. Long-term evolution means this is actually evolving from last many years, and it will evolve for next few years, right? But we have soon realized that many of the things what we wanted to do in our networks are not being fulfilled by 4G, and that's where we have started talking about 5G, right? So if I talk about 2-3 main parameters, the first one is data rates. 4G gives us data rate of around 1 Gbps, When I say 1 Gbps, 1 Gbps is not the data rate for the end user. 1 Gbps is the data for the network what it provides you, all the users in the cell, right? The 5G promises almost 20 times of that, 20x, which is 20 Gbps peak rate of network, right? So that is my data rates have gone 10, 20 times from compared to 4G. The another point here is the latencies, the delays, what were typically 10 millisecond or 20 millisecond kind of delays in 4G. In 5G, they are brought down to 1 millisecond. That is like 10 or 20 times less delays, right? And this, if you see these data rates and these delays, will actually giving birth to a lot of new use cases which were not possible in case of 5G. Sorry, 4G. In case of 4G, they were not possible, right? And of course, it is going to add a lot of values to the things what we are doing in day-to-day life, right? And I see this as a breakthrough technology. And other thing what I wanted to mention here is 5G also coming up with a different mindset. Earlier 4G networks were very closed networks, right? So that means the third-party servers, applications like WhatsApp, like Facebook, like Google, they were actually consuming the data of these networks and then providing services on top of that. So that typically we call those applications as OTT application, over the top applications, right? In case of 5G, what they're trying to do is operators are also trying to built in lot of new services in the network itself. So they are moving from a carrier network to a service network. So that is a major shift which is happening in the CSPs, we typically call them, communication service providers. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in 5G, and I am sure many of these things will pick up, and then we will be having a lot of exciting exciting time ahead.
So Sanjay, I remember back in the days that when we first got broadband cable for home. Okay, now I remember back in the days, even in the U.S. and in India too, that I have noticed that the price were quite high. Okay, not a lot of people can afford it. Now slowly everyone kind of is affording it because I think the price are coming down or people can afford it. I think it's two different things. Same thing with the wireless. Do you think the fiber is very expensive now, or do you think that it's going to be here to stay and it should come down so then everyone can have fiber?
Okay, let me put it this way, Girish. So the biggest industry which has got the boost because of this 5G is the fiber industry.
Yeah.
Right. Why so? Because the kind of data rate what we are promising to the end user, that has to be carried on the fiber. So just to take an example, a few companies who are producing fiber in India, they are having their order books full for next 3 years, and they are running at highest capacity from in last decade.
Yeah.
Right. So that is one. I'm talking from the network perspective.
Yes.
I'm talking from the network perspective first, because network has to carry all this data on fiber for sure.
Yeah.
Right. So this data has to be carried on fiber, and this is how it has to be. Now, talking from the question what you have asked, do we really need to bring fibers to the home? Again, the answer for that question is yes. The kind of data rates which are being promised, lot of backbone network has to be fiber. So the kind of data rate what I want to consume in 5G, it is, so typically we call this as two different areas. One is a hotspot area, which is, let's say, a cell in my home.
Yeah.
And the other area can be wide area, which is covering, let's say, a few kilometers.
Yes.
Right. So in few kilometers area, this doesn't give me data rates like 20 Gbps and all. It will be some Mbps, some 100 Mbps, 50 Mbps kind of data rate. But if I really need very, very fast data rates like 200, 300, 400 Mbps kind of data rate, of course, I have to rely on some hotspot at my home, and they has to be connected with some fiber. So fiber and wireless industry is going to grow side by side. And of course, the price is going to be the key. And the industry is working very hard to reduce the cost per bit. We typically call this as cost per bit, where when data rate is increasing, the cost per bit is decreasing, and that's why more people, more users are able to afford that price.
Now with
question,
yeah, it does. So does that mean that I can use my 5G, or I should say my 6G network, and then make that as my home broadband? Or do you think the broadband is a little different?
Yeah. So let me put it this way. Yesterday, I was delivering training to a telecom company, and the topic what I taught was wireline, wireless convergence. Right. So the networks are being converged. Networks are being converged, and in future, all these network will be working together. And then as soon as you enter your home, you will actually offload all your traffic to the hotspot what you have at your home, and as soon as you move out you will connect to some towers which are nearby,
Yeah.
right? So the answer to your question is the convergence. There is a lot of convergence has to happen in the telecom network to make it more efficient. So
Mm.
my 5G network itself is becoming a place where I can converge my 5G network as well as my IPTV as well as my landline phone or my internet what I'm using as a broadband. Lot of convergence is happening with wireline and these broadband networks along with the 5G.
So thank you for that, Sanjay. So this whole technology is great, and it's helping people in many different directions. You're talking personal, and you're talking business, which is, and health also at the same time. But
Yep.
now the question is, because if you think about it, it's kind of harmful for humans, right? If you think about it, because you got radioactive wireless going around the house, and you got let's say a wireless charger, and you can just keep your phone here and it's charging.
Yep.
Is it harmful for us, do you think, from the health
Right.
point of view?
Right. So let me ask you a question, Girish. Counter question, Girish.
Yes.
Eating food is good or bad for body?
Okay, it's good.
It's good. It's required, right?
Yes.
Okay. But if you eat a lot of junk food, lot of burgers, lot of pizzas, what will happen to your health?
Okay. Yes, I get that. So it will be
Right.
bad.
So
Yeah.
wireless networks are also like that, right? So if you see, they are radioactive waves, and I cannot say that they are not harmful. They are harmful. End of the day, right? But again, what is happening here is it is required to keep a tap on how much we are transmitting on those wireless frequencies.
Yeah.
Of course, if they are going beyond some limit, they are harmful for sure,
Yeah.
right? But again, it's all about trade-off what we are doing in our life. We eat on daily basis and we keep a check on what we are actually eating so that we stay healthy.
Yeah.
Exactly in the same manner, the wireless frequencies has to be maintaining a certain level.
Yeah.
And if they go beyond that, of course, they are going to be harmful for sure,
Yeah.
right? But there is another aspect to it. People are also blaming 5G that it has caused corona, right? So that those are more of a rumors, what I can say. But again, working in wireless industry from last 20 years, even I have experienced the harm of these wireless waves many times, and they are harmful. I will not say no to it, but
Yeah.
again, if you really need to keep a tap on it, and then you need to uh, transmit at certain power level. If you transmit beyond that, they are harmful for sure.
So I'm gonna tap into that harmful and the power of it. But one comment that I have is a friend of mine was telling me that if I take a cell phone and put it in my left pocket near my
Mhm.
heart, it's gonna be bad.
Mhm.
Do you think that's a myth, or is that a problem?
Right. So if you see now, especially when there are some instant where actually network transmits to find your phone, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there are a lot of different communications which are happening, right? So when you use your phone, you keep it near to your ear, which is actually next to your brain,
Makes your
and
brain.
this
Yeah.
is the right pocket you're talking about. You're talking from the perspective of your heart. Right. So I think directly keeping this your phone here, I don't think this will cause some problem, but of course, long run, when you talk with these EM waves, electromagnetic waves, there are some harms. So it is always good to keep your phone aside whenever you are not using it. So I'll
Yeah.
still suggest that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Sanjay, with this 5G and 6G and 7G, whatever we come up with, okay, whatever it is in the future, the phones needs to be very powerful, right? And if it is powerful, which means that it's also danger of getting into fire, or and burning hot, like when we're turning on the TV, in olden days when we turn on the TV, at the back it used to be burning hot, right?
Mhm.
take the same example for wireless phones. What do you think, that we're getting a little better with the heat and the cool of your phone for more power?
Okay, right. So to Girish, to answer this question, if you see, whenever the electronic systems are working, they are going to dissipate some heat, right? So that is going to happen. It happens in every device, whether it
Yes.
is fan, whether it is your AC, and any other device for that matter. But I think technology is much more advanced than it was 20 years back, right? And the kind of rigid phone what we used to have, which will be very, very heavy, very big phones, and we have very, very sleek phones. The technology is much more advanced compared to the technology what we had 20 years, right? 20 years back, right? So they are taking care of it, but still one or the other instance can happen, because it can happen with your air conditioning. Your air conditioning can catch fire. Your fan can burn. Your refrigerator can burn. But why? Because it's all time. It is that mobile technology which is being blamed. It can happen to any device for that matter.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I mean,
our
but
switches used to burn. Yeah,
Sanjay, before the reason why I asked that question is, if you remember years back, a couple of, I don't even know how many years back. I'll have to Google it or find out. But Samsung actually got a burnt battery because it was just overheated.
hmm.
So I'm just afraid. Well, now I think they've fixed the problem. But do you think later in time we will see some other phones having issues like that?
I'll tell you that I'm sure you're talking about the Samsung Galaxy Note, which was not allowed on the flights and all,
That's
right?
right.
So,
That's
yeah.
right.
So it's many times these things are happening because of the technology,
Yeah.
right? Let's say they sold 1 million phones, right?
Right.
Let's say they sold 1 million or 2 million phones, and out of 2 million phones, two phone got burned.
Right.
Right. But
Right.
how it was positioned in the market, saying that all the Samsung
That's
Galaxy
right.
Note are bad.
Right.
And many times, what I'm trying to convey here is, many times it's not the technology which is actually driving this. It's more about the politics which is driving this.
That's right.
So there is a lot of
Because
lobbying behind all that stuff which is happening in the industry. So
I'm
it's not only the Samsung phone, Apple can be burning, and Xiaomi phone can be burning, and Dell phone can be. It can happen to any device for that matter.
yeah,
So I
it's
don't really agree that there is something wrong with that phone, but it was more about the how it was being positioned and how it was politically driven
yeah,
to make the impact, saying that this phone is bad, right?
I
So
totally
this is
agree with
how.
that. I totally
Yeah.
agree with that. So let me explain here. So when that news came out that Samsung was not allowed on the plane, okay,
Yeah.
you have to understand that, let's say you had 1,000 phones in that batch, and out of the 1,000 phones, only two were bad. That does not
Mhm.
mean the whole 1,000 was bad. Only the
Yeah.
two were bad. But keep in mind that when manufacturers are giving the phones out, there is a QA process, which is a quality assurance process. And that's where maybe there was a fault. And that's why it all happened. So, guys, keep in mind that Back to Basics is all about basics of understanding that, it's not the whole company that is an issue. It's actually the QA process of that particular batch. So, guys, just keep in mind on that. So, Sanjay, one last thing before we let you go. What do you think the next feature is? You think it's the 6G network, or do we still need to fix the 5G network? Because it seems
Okay.
like 5G is still
So this
it's still in the toddler phase, right?
Yeah. So this is an interesting question, Girish, when we are closing this, right? So if you see, 5G is still at a toddler phase, right? So we are still talking about 5G day in and day out, right? From last 2 3 months, I'm content. Every day. There is no day where I don't talk about 5G, but people have already started talking about 5G. And now, one important thing to note here is the future generation of network, including 5G, is not going to be about networks only,
Yeah,
right? It will be going to lot more than the networks, and those lot more things are the artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics, and big data. The how data is being generated. If you see, just to take an example, the kind of data what I was generating around 10 years back, it was like 100 MB in a month, 100
yeah,
MB or 200 MB in a month. Now I am consuming almost 1 GB data every day, right? So I'm generating or I'm consuming this much data. So it's being generated somewhere. So I'm consuming the data. right? So the big data, data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning are going to play a very, very important role in the future networks. And they are going to impact our life in the way what we have not even imagined, right? So forget about us and our kids, right? So they are going to have a completely different life, right? So 6G networks are going to be a lot more about artificial intelligence and machine learning. That's what I can imagine, right? So as of now.
Yeah, yeah. So Sanjay, before we let you go, any last words before we let you go?
No, no. Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me over, and it was a great discussion with you. And I enjoyed this discussion. And this is what I talk on day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And I think that it will reach to many people, and it will also benefit people in long run.
Thank you
So
so much, because I
thanks
mean,
for your time.
this topic is very complicated for a lot of people, and we try. I mean, I try my best on this show to bring at least to the basics of understanding what 5G network or wireless or broadband or smartphones it is all about. And that's what I'm trying my best on that.
Yeah, thanks, Girish. I hope I was able to answer some of your question and clear some of your doubts. Right.
Yeah.
So keep in touch and let's people keep listening to Back to Basics. There are awesome stuff happening on the Back to Basics. Thank you very much.
So Sanjay, thank you again. If I have any questions about 5G network, I will tap you once in a while and I ask you, because it seems like you are the trainer, but you are kind of the expert on the 5G side of things.
Anytime, Girish. Feel free to write me an email or just give me a call. I'm just a call away.
Thank you so much. So
Thanks a lot.
guys, so we got Sanjay Kumar on this show regarding my 5G network, the wireless networks, and what did we talk about? We talked about, yes, it is dangerous, but yes, it's also helpful at the same time. So guys, just keep in mind, as usual, as always, there is a quote of the day, and the quote of the day is, the internet was a great idea until it went wireless. And that's by Steve Maggie. So just keep in mind that, yes, it's true that the internet was here to stay and internet is bad and wireless is bad, but there is good benefit to it. And that's what we're trying to do, and trying to make awareness to a lot of people that wireless is here to stay, is not here to gone or gone away. It is the new future of the world, but safe world. We'll try to make as safe as possible, guys. So as usual, as always, the last thing that I say at my end of my episode is, remember, everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, keep on subscribing, commenting, good or bad, either way, it will make my episode stronger day by day, episode by episode. With your support and my love and back to back, we will make this happen. Guys, take care. God bless. See you next week. Next week's episode on Back to Basics.
Basically, cloud is all about software, codes, okay, and having your system on cloud. So that means you'll have a lot of software codes running, and containerization actually helps to manage the codes, the software codes. So it's a very huge trending topic right now, because the businesses are actually upgrading their system so that they can actually, I mean, upgrading their system between their cloud services. Now, it could be from AWS, it could be from Microsoft.